What's going on, guys? Today I'm talking about the 2024 Beta 300 RR. This model is oil injected, which makes it really good for street use. And also, if you just don't want to mix your fuel, all you do is fill up that oil container and go. New for 2024, they have a better turning radius by tapering the radiator on the top. I like how the seat is just push button. You just push that button, it pops right off. Same with the air filter access, has toolless access there as well. It does have a high beam and low beams and a horn. Everything is plug and play if you want to make this bike street legal. This bike has a 2.6 gallon gas tank, and yesterday I rode it all over the place in the mountains and it did not even come close to running out of fuel. I haven't done anything to this bike in terms of performance. I've only protected it. So I've put the hand guards on it, the pipe guard, and the engine guard. What makes this bike a little bit different from the race edition is it has Sachs suspension, which tends to be more compliant on the trail. It tends to be softer. It won't absorb the harder hits like the KYB on the race edition will. All right, guys, I wanted to give you more details about the suspension. I know that's a kind of a subjective thing, suspension is, but I know that it is also one of those things that you guys make your purchasing decision based off of a lot of the time. So on this bike, there are some details about it that you should know, and the biggest one is that it's going to sit lower than the KYB on the race model. So the race model sits higher than this bike. And that could be beneficial or it could be detrimental. It depends on your riding style. This bike, for me, I was smacking into rocks way more with this bike because I'm kind of calibrated for a bike that sits higher. If maybe you're a beginner or somebody who really needs to be able to touch the ground easier, this bike would be probably really beneficial in comparison to a taller bike. The Sachs suspension is also not quite as adjustable as something like a KYB that comes on the race models. So you're kind of stuck a little bit more with this suspension without being able to adjust it as much. If you jump up to the race models with the KYB suspension, then you're gonna have more ground clearance, so you're not gonna be hitting rocks nearly as much. You're gonna be able to hit things harder, and it's gonna feel plusher in that scenario. So if you're the type who is a little bit taller or at least average height and you're hitting things harder, I think that the KYB suspension on the race models, those are gonna be the way to go. This bike, I really like it, but the suspension sat a little bit low for me, and it's also sitting about an inch wider than my 2018 Husqvarna. So I was hitting rocks a lot because I'm not calibrated for this bike. And so when it sits this low and this wide, it really is detrimental for me personally. But for another person, it may be really beneficial. All of that's kind of up to each individual. It's also reflected in the cost. So if you go with this RR model, then the cost is going to be significantly lower than if you were to get the race model. It's got a KN carburetor. It's got V-Force 4 reeds. It's got all of the premium things that you've come to expect out of Beta motorcycles. It's got the clutch by Brembo, which has great feel. The Nissan brakes also have great feel. On this year model, it seems to be a little grabbier on the brakes than in 25 for some reason. They still feel really good. They're just a little grabby. Grabby front brake, that's my complaint. Suspension needs work. The height, the clearance between the peg and rocks is getting me. I'm smashing into every rock out here. The clutch is kind of off and on too. That's a lot of complaints. I think I can get them all fixed though. I think I can fix every single one of those except for maybe the clearance issue. I think that one's going to be a tough one. The oil injection is really, really nice because you can make this bike street legal and not worry about your engine exploding. It has switches for your turn signals, which are just plug and play if you want to add those. It's got a horn on it. I'm bouncing around right now, but let's see if I can find that horn. I get a kick out of that every time. It has an oil reservoir under the seat. Make sure that's filled up. Always good to go for at least a week or so for me. The stock gearing is something that is worthy of talking about. It's a 6-speed wide ratio transmission. I have found that the top speed's right around 75 miles per hour. It will cruise pretty easily at 55. That's where I would be comfortable cruising at. Does it make sense to take this out on the freeway? Definitely not. But the 6-speed gear ratio is nice and evenly spaced throughout. So I have found that first gear is very, very luggable. Out here for practical use on the dirt, you're never going to use 6th gear. I mean, it's way too fast. Unless you're using this as a dual sport, you're never going to use 6th. Today I have crawled up through some gnarly stuff. And I've got to say that this 300 has my seal of approval. This engine, when you get it down low, right off idle, it's just so smooth and tractable. It's like a tractor. Just sticks to the ground. I was able to do nice, slow, controlled wheelies. I'll slide around and get knocked around, but generally speaking, the bike wants to stay straight. It's hard to fault this bike at all right now for anything. It's pulled me out of some tight spots. When you're starting to really get worried if you're gonna make it out of somewhere and the bike just gets it done, that's what you want. Rain mode and sunshine mode, pretty easily accessible right here on the front of the gas tank. Basically that just retards the ignition on rain mode to make this bike easier to ride. I never used that. It comes standard with the Maxxis Enduro tires, front and rear. Not sure how I feel about those. I've been hooking up to roots and rocks really well with them actually. On the loose stuff is where they really struggle. This actually has a spot for a Kickstarter, which I'm a huge fan of. I hope Beta, if they're listening to this, does not get rid of that. Yeah, having the option for a kickstart at the very minimum, I think that's essential, and it's something that I will probably put on there. The headlight works really good. This whole thing is really stylish, as you can see. I mean, I think this is the best looking motorcycle around. They sit quite a bit lower than an Austrian bike. The difference isn't huge until you're riding. Like I said, the race edition sits a little bit higher, but even at that, it's lower than the Austrian bikes. This bike sits lower than the race. And when you're on the trail, you can really feel that. When you go to dab, put your foot down, you're right there. A huge deal when you're out here riding on these trails, to be tall enough to touch and to throw your weight back and forth and to dab on both sides of the bike makes a huge difference. Their motto is rideability, and they have made this bike very, very rideable. On this model, they still have the steering lock bolts, and I will probably remove those. In the 25 model, they removed those. And so I can see that I've got at least another 1/4 inch I can get out of this as far as turning radius. It's been really good as far as turning radius, but there have been a few times, because the switchbacks are crazy, the angles on the switchbacks are wild. You gotta have some turning radius for sure. So I have hit the steering lock a couple times, but it's not noticeable on just a normal everyday ride. This bike doesn't have a spark arrestor, and none of the other bikes come with spark arrestors either. I totally understand that. I don't blame the manufacturers for that at all. The idea is that you'll use these bikes for closed course use only and not use them out anywhere else. In order to sell them in different countries, that's what they have to do. This exhaust tells that story. In our elevation, this bike with stock jetting and all that stuff was way too rich. It came with a 165 main jet. I had to drop it down to a 158. I also switched out the needle and the pilot jet. With those changes, this bike runs amazingly. But if you kept the stock jetting on this bike and never touched it, you wouldn't have a good opinion of this bike, and the range would be terrible. I think Beta is the strongest company moving forward. I've seen a few of the other ones go the wrong direction by trying to grow too fast, and also by being greedy. Yeah, this bike is beautiful. It comes with black Excel rims. All hardware on this bike is going to be premium. This bike was not loaned to me or given to me or anything like that. I bought this with my own money. So 2024 Beta 300RR, you really can't beat it overall for trail riding. A little bit lower ground clearance, but your seat height is way lower. That seat height makes a huge difference in terms of rideability. The Sachs suspension is very compliant and plush over the little hits. Going down a trail when you're over those rolling boulders and things like that, it's very compliant. And of course, it's the best looking bike out there. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Trees get stung by bees.